Good evening, everybody. Tonight is the 10th of February. It's a regular meeting of USD 453. And we'll have roll call. Mrs. Murphy,
Here.
Mrs. Wells,
Here.
Mrs. Price,
Here.
Mrs. Overby,
Here.
Mrs. Wilson,
Here.
Mrs. Reed.
Here.
I'm Mike Carney. I'm here. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I think we need a mission statement.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Real quick before I begin, at your place should be a copy of the 2025-26 district calendar. Thank you to our HR department for getting those ready for you tonight. And as always, a reminder to speak clearly into the microphone for our friends watching at home. As to the mission statement, the mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom every day.
Thank you. No scheduled input, 0. Okay, moving right along. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
No, you can. The consent agenda, yeah.
Yep. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, the consent agenda is next. Any issues with the consent agenda to be taken off?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion to adopt, or what are we doing? Oh, yeah.
Consent agenda.
The consent agenda. Approve the consent agenda as presented by Mrs. Wells and seconded again by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor, right?
Aye.
7-0. And where is it? Gotta get into the threes here somewhere. Executive session already?
Yep. Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, or KOMA, in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and that we return to open session in this room at 6:12. The board will invite Dr. Kellen Adams, Amy Sloan, and Isaac Caverly into the meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Price to go into executive session, second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Let's roll. I better leave this here. 10 minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the staffing report as presented.
Second.
We had a motion to approve the staffing report by Mrs. Wells, second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Okay. Where are we at here? Strategic plan?
Ready for strategic plan?
Yep.
Mr. Booth.
Oh, there he is. I didn't see him.
Good evening, everyone. So for our monthly strategic plan update, since we're just past that year mark with having our public strategic plan dashboard, I wanted to do kind of a quick refresh for the board and for anyone watching on the click path to get there, as well as some updates we've made in the last few weeks that I think are exciting and will be interesting to the board. So just as a reminder to everybody, to access that strategic plan dashboard, you go to USD453.org, go to the About Our District section, and then go to Mission, Vision, and Strategic Plan. Once there, you have this page that Mr. Potter's team made that breaks down our mission, vision, and goals, as well as the strategic plan document and information here. And then on the top right, we have the strategic plan dashboard, which is what I'll navigate to now. So on this, remember, we made this as a public-facing piece to see the metrics used to track the strategic plan dashboard or strategic plan, as well as the action steps that are being taken. So on your left-hand side, you have a navigation bar. If you click any of the arrows, those will give you drop downs that will give you those measurement pieces. So if you directly want to access ACT data, FastBridge, things of that nature. In the top right, kind of a nice feature is you do have a search bar. So if you wanted to search for a specific item, you could type that in, type FastBridge, and if there's a hit, for example, on that, it would show up in the search. As you scroll down the main screen here, it gives you the 5 key areas of the strategic plan. As we've gone through this process, you'll see if you come to professional development, kind of our one pager of the strategic plan is at the forefront of each of the presentations that the admin or teachers give, as well as even drilling down to what is an action step or two that it relates to. So on the dashboard, if you wanted to go into teaching and learning as an example, you could click that. It'll give you the goal statement and action steps for the strategic plan, followed by what are those metrics and what is the anticipated update. So the one we're doing right now this month would be our FastBridge academic screening update. So you'd be able to click on that, go to usually 2 to 4 slides, depending on how much data we have, that you can click through and see that. Our FastBridge window just closed, so we're getting that up to date for you end of last week, beginning of this week. The piece I want to draw your attention to that is a new page since we launched this is at the bottom, which is our KISA page. So as the board knows from your board FYI 2 weeks ago, you had a screencast recording with my lovely voice, as well as some pieces of information on our new KISA goal, as well as action steps. So we've created a new page to reflect that. So you can go to the KISA page either here or on the link to the side. And it just gives you an overview of what is KISA 2.0, which is the accreditation process in Kansas. We, of course, have that update date there for you, as well as kind of a breakdown of what are those components of KISA. So a little different look and feel than what you saw in the screencast recording, but kind of a quick synopsis of what is encapsulated in KISA. As the board knows from watching that and reading through the material, that is composed of compliance, outcomes, and school improvement. We also have a recognition of our 2 bronze stars for the STAR recognition program, which is social emotional growth and kindergarten readiness. And then on the page, you can see each of those sections of KISA broken down. So for school improvement, this is that same one pager that you received in the board FY and that we've been sharing at site councils that breaks down the goal area and what are the actions we're measuring to get there. If you scroll down, here is that screencast recording I was mentioning. So if you wanted to listen to a full presentation of me talking about it, you can do that. Then we have the compliance page, and this breaks down the 14 areas of compliance of KISA, which, as I said in the recording, is kind of like the assurances for the assurances, things that we're already doing, but that we have to assure the state we're taking care of. We do also have links to the new ksd.gov website if you wanted to dig into even further detail from their PDFs. And then lastly, we have the outcomes section, which is the one that the state is still fine-tuning all the pieces and parts of. But we did go ahead and give you a link to Data Central, which is the public repository of the accountability report, a new report they call the KISA Outcomes Data Report, which is comprised of assessments, graduation, and post-secondary. It mirrors what you see on the district and building report card. So same data, just put in a slightly different look and feel for KISA specifically. So I want to highlight this to you just as another transparent public resource that we've put out to document the work we're doing both with KISA, and then since we're past that year mark, what we've already been doing the last year with the strategic plan overall. Last piece I'll highlight as you go back to that main page is we do have a document that's linked here that we just updated last week that goes through what are those points and when we're updating them. So generally speaking, knowing dates can sometimes shift when things are published. The red would be kind of our area of focus for that month of what we're updating on the dashboard or in these reports. And then black ones are ones that we're adding to the site, but not necessarily highlighting specifically. So that you'll see we've updated even to reflect the new KISA timeline. So for January, as an example, KSD accountability reports are published. So we've updated some of those pieces and parts as well. So should be all up to date as of about February 7th, 2025 with everything we have. So just wanted to share that for the board and for everybody as a great reference point for what we're doing with school improvement. I'll take any questions you may have. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
So the question I have is not really for Ryan. It's more for the entire team. But is there anything you'd like to see differently? We've got now 1 year under our belt. of creating what is hopefully a regular focus with the strategic plan. As you know, it's a regular placeholder on the board agenda. My intent is for it to always be in your face, so to speak. And so if it's not, what can we do to keep it more right in front of your face?
I would like to see more, not less of anything, but even more on the teaching and learning.
Okay.
I would, that's something that
So the
interests me a lot.
of those
So,
5 focus areas really honing in on teaching and learning specifics. Okay. Thank you.
I just appreciated the improvement.
Speaking to the microphone.
Thank you, Dr. Adams, for the improvement. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we have the strategic plan on our website.
Yep.
There in your face, but maybe actually kind of like how you might highlight some sections for us as a board that you take a time of once a month or every couple of weeks and highlight a particular selection that the community itself may want to get involved in.
Yep.
That may give them more information or some excitement as we're going through this process. And maybe that will help community engagement and maybe fostering some more ideas.
Building on that, Ms.
Thank
Murphy,
you.
like on the splash page as it goes through,
Yep,
main page.
that's exactly what I was talking about.
I assume you know what that means. Splash page is a new terminology for me. So got it. Thank you.
Kind of like Vegas. It's like a rolling header.
Got it. All right. Thank you for the feedback. Sorry to interrupt.
You're fine.
Good. Number 8.
All right. I think I'm going to stand. Is that all right?
Okay. Number 7.
Hi. As you could probably imagine, the topic of the day, week, and month continues to be the budget. And so, as promised, this is really one of those culminating meetings. As you know, we are not fully through the fiscal year yet, but tonight was a very important milestone for purposes of report out, as well as talking next steps. So, with that in mind, some of this is going to feel redundant because we have attempted to say things ad nauseum at this point. But I think some of you have appreciated the repetitiveness with that. So I apologize if it feels like we're on repeat, but that is by design. I'm going to argue this connects to all 5 of our strategic plan because it has an impact anyway, because we are having conversation about priorities. We're having conversation about where do we best allocate resources. So for me, this falls into all 5, certainly the finance and operations. But as you know, and as we'll get to here in a little bit, we are talking about finite resources and where to best place those for improving outcomes for kids. Here's an overview of our timeline. I want to emphasize we are not done yet. But as you'll see here in a little bit, we are now inside the red zone, and we are about to put the ball in the end zone. Just to rehash, we've come here really because of 3 different things. The first of which is approximately 10% of a student decline. So in round numbers, 3,500 students is where we're at. We've lost over 300 in the last 2 fiscal years. Second, as you know, federal stimulus has really ended, and it ended with the current fiscal year that we are in. And as you operationalized some of those dollars, that meant you were faced with tough decisions of either continuing to operationalize those or putting to an end those services. And then just like your personal life and of course the other municipalities, we are dealing with the impacts of inflation. There's a look back. I know a couple of you requested the 10-year look back and appreciate that because I think it provides some good context of where we've been since fiscal year 15-16. So as you'll see there, we were at 3,600, almost 3,700, and then unfortunately have been really on a steady decline since then. The important takeaway that I want to continue to remind, we did know about a decline per the RSP enrollment study that was engaged approximately 4 fiscal years ago. The caveat was, of course, it was highly predictive in nature. We unfortunately exceeded those projections. Quick recap, we're going to talk about specifically on all 3 of these categories tonight. as we are projecting increases in really these three broader categories, the first of which is utilities, which is very much using some methodology to project at this point. Second of which is our insurance pool of products. And then finally, what I believe is important is we maintain a competitive environment in our wages. All right, so this is a new slide. You're going to see some slides that are look very familiar here in a little bit. This breaks down, if you will, the other $2.5 million. So we have talked, I would say, more specifically for the 2.5 that was related to student loss. And there is no decisions that need to be made by this board with regard to that because it is all driven by a finance formula that governs every school district. The other $2.5 million is in those projected increased costs. And they are broken into these 4 categories. I've given you here a timeline to understand the context and what I'm going to call the squeeze that we deal with. Notice that some of these are coming right at the end of the fiscal year and arguably even into the next fiscal year, which makes this quandary even more difficult. So for context, the utilities is based upon a 3-year running average. So what we believe is an appropriate increase to expect there. Transportation is a hard number per our contracted vendor. Employee wages is very much based upon our current employee wages and what we believe is an appropriate amount in that regard. And then finally, insurance is based upon, again, projections based upon percentages of current premium paid. Any questions about this? This is probably the newest information I have for you. Okay. This will also be new. You've seen this table a couple times. I'm not going to highlight every one of them, but I'm going to highlight the changes. They're my favorite color, purple. The impact aid dollars unfortunately came in lower than projected. So if I recall correctly, Beth, please confirm 200,000 was our original number.
Yes.
That came in at only 60,000. So unfortunately was less revenue than expected. For context, we have about 400 families that were identified as eligible. Only 1/3 of those families chose to participate. The next update here for you is an update and an increase, if you will, in the reduction of subscriptions. So thanks again to our teaching and learning team for continuing to evaluate wants versus needs. Mr. Bodesider, do you recall the last number? Okay, so a net increase of 20. You're going to see now we are projecting, actually, I'm going to say it is very much planned. The issue on the staffing is that some of those separations are not yet public, so I want to emphasize that. But we are planning for a 13% reduction in the administrative FTE. So just under 400,000 there. Let's call it 7.5% on certified and about 5% on our classified. So you'll see those 3 categories. It looks like certified was not updated since the January 27th. The other 2 have obviously had separations that occurred here. And then finally, the last new one is, again, I would say reflective of ongoing and consistent conversations about how and where can we become more efficient. And so I'll get into that here in a little bit, but it does represent a cost savings without a reduction in service. And that is to the tune of $43,000 for transportation of the Pioneer Cursor. The net result is we are now under $1 million to fine, $876 and change. In the context of overall $5 million, knowing what we're dealing with, I would consider us very much, as I said, into the red zone and moving our way towards a visible finish line. All right, so just to rehash these, this is your chance to, if you will, clarify anything from January 27th. But in the facility savings context, we're looking at $500,000 that would be transferred. These are current expenses paid for from operational funds, i.e. general fund or LOB. And what we are proposing is to change that expense fund to the capital outlay fund. The second of which is what I call burning the shelves, burning the supplies, moving to a very much, if you will, just-in-time ordering system. And that saves to the tune of $51,000. Up next is meetings and travel, specifically for this office and officers residing at the board level. This would represent, if you will, a strategic abandonment of attending meetings other than those that are specifically required by state or federal agencies. The third we've talked about, and again, I think this is where I rehash this point. If something is frosted and or eliminated, It can always come back, and I'm welcome to that conversation. But for the intents and purposes of this, we are proposing the elimination of the chamber bucks to the tune of $35,000 and change. We recognize fully that has an impact to the local economy as well as it has an impact to employees. The district immunization mailer. This again would be one of the newer things where we're not going to necessarily reduce the service, but rather reduce the footprint required to in its current offering. All right, so this is one of your updated amounts. This again is, I would say, applause to our teaching and learning team for continuing to evaluate what is a want versus a need, as well as finding things that will have lower impact versus those that are widely used. So this represented an increase, if you will, of $20,000 in reduction. As you know, the new teacher academy would go from 4 days to 3. Thanks to Mrs. Batson for making that possible, while also still supporting the needs of a district that turns over annually quite a few staff. All right, so this number is through Friday. So keep in mind, we are in what I would call about to enter peak separation season, in which literally they will begin to happen almost daily. And so this is through the end of business on Friday. Again, a 13% reduction in the administrative footprint, 7.5% in certified, and 5% on the classified. These are the separations we know about today. We will continue to update all 3 of these categories under the caveat that certain positions cannot be frosted. I think we've discussed this before, but I think it bears repeating. There is, in my opinion, a floor to grade levels and departments. I'll pick on high school math just because it's fun to pick on. And I know most of those teachers there. At some point, we must begin filling those positions. We cannot reduce every single resignation or separation that occurs. Same would apply with your elementary grade levels. At a certain point, we will reach a pupil-teacher ratio that's no longer palatable, so we'll begin to fill those. I think we've talked about virtual ed, how it has a separate revenue stream attached to it. These are truly on a case-by-case basis, I guess is my point here. So the other caveat that I will add is while it may be frosted in February, it can absolutely be unfrosted in April, May, etc. Because reality is, with our changing demographics and changing enrollment numbers, it may very well be palatable today and unpalatable by the time we return or by the time we're heading out and we've got further separations. All right, let's talk about this because it's the newest one and I want to make sure that there's nothing lost in the translation. This again represents a chance to be more efficient with current resources. So suffice it to say, we are providing transportation to and from the Pioneer Career Center for those students taking those programs. However, the current source, which is a 53-passenger bus, is not highly utilized. So we're going to be able to switch the means of transportation, therefore reducing the overall footprint, while at the same time not reducing the actual services provided. Are there any questions on this one?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
So are we going to restrict students from going to Pioneer Career Center because of lack of transportation options, or will adjust if enrollment increases at Pioneer Career Center?
Excellent question. I would not support any type of reduction in the ability for students to attend.
Okay.
I also believe you would quickly run into an equity issue there. I don't want your ability to be transported to become a hurdle or barrier to being able to participate. With that in mind, we may start with 1 district van and find that we need to go to 2. I welcome that problem because that's a good thing in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Agreed.
And do we not also have several students that are within that program that are capable of transporting themselves?
I believe that is correct. What I cannot verify for you is whether or not they have the means of the transportation. But yes, generally speaking, they should have the age and or the driver's license.
Right,
Yep.
may have the
Yep.
means with the keys in their hand.
Yep.
And
Which-
may not.
Absolutely. I don't want their lack of resources of transportation to become a reason why they can or cannot attend.
Which is probably why the busing service is not very popular, I'm assuming.
Because of those that already have. Sure.
So you already have the staff to facilitate the transportation?
Yep.
Thank you.
Onward. All right. I think we've hit this in the past, but again, we're going to plan to spend down some of our cash reserves. This comes with a caveat that they come out of starting FY25 balances or ending FY25 balances, FY26 is next year. The other caveat is as you burn that cash, you still have to reduce the footprint that comes with it. So there are future reductions that will have to occur. Otherwise, we would have to continue to burn that, and I would not recommend that. So while I'm okay using that as a bridge, I just wanted to open the conversation for the idea that in order to become budget neutral, you would have to reduce that footprint going forward. Said differently, I don't want to start paying for the Evergy bill with the Christmas bonus, because eventually the Christmas bonus runs out, but the Evergy bill continues. All right, we've discussed this. I just want to hit on this because this is going to serve as a segue to items coming to a board meeting near you. First is which is the insurance. Until the building is fully closed, sold, demolished, whatever its future holds, we are still obligated to provide that insurance. Now, I will attempt to minimize the premium that is going into that, but we are still bound to insure the building until such time that it's no longer our property. However, we're going to put that, and it's already been put into this mode of really only emergency repairs. And after programs are moved to the IC, I would contend that you should not put any more money into repairs going forward. So both the planned and the unplanned repairs represent an average savings of $120,000 per year. And then finally, utilities, again, until you fully sell the building, you can't fully turn off the heat. You understand that. But we're going to bring those down to bare minimum levels in the heating and cooling season. Obviously, water, et cetera, will be far less. That represents a $45,000 savings. So by exiting that building, you have the $165K savings immediately. If and when the board decides the fate of that building, you may have potential additional savings.
Now, while we're on this, I know it's a bit of a sticky wicket. The board does not get involved in day-to-day activities. So we wouldn't tell you you couldn't move kids from one section of the school into another section of that school. But within the board policies, and I have been through them again, this is something the board would have had to vote on and discuss, of making the decision to shut down a building completely and moving the kids to another school. And we did not get that opportunity. It was sat at this board table last month. It was announced that you'd already talked to people, you've already told the admin, and it was going to be done. And that's how we found out as a board. And that's not transparent, keeping this board informed or us making the decisions for this. And that's something that should have been presented to us for us to discuss and decide. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to close it down, but you pretty much took our board role away from us and made the decision for us. And I have heartburn about that. I don't know if the rest of the board has heartburn about that, but I have heartburn about that because that is not how it even dictates within the board policies. It says you will present and recommend, but then we will make the decisions for those things.
Mrs. Murphy, I would ask that we continue this conversation in executive session.
Okay.
When possible.
Yep. And to be clear, we have not shut down Nettie Hartnett. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Can we make a motion to go into executive session, or because it's not on the agenda, we can't?
Would it have to be next month, unless we want to do a
Yeah, you've
special-
already adopted your agenda for
Right.
the evening.
Okay.
So can we go ahead and put it on there so we know it's going to be on the agenda next month?
Thank you.
What would be the coma protected reason for the executive session?
Just you as an employee of the district, I think it would be proper for it to be an executive session conversation.
Okay, so it's going to be a personnel matter.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, what questions are there?
It's not really a question outright, Dr. Adams, but I know that from our work session and from sort of a follow on from when we had our, I don't remember, it was November, December, when they came and did the briefing about upgrades to energy and all those things. I know that we haven't been flat footed. So what I would like to see in let's say maybe the April board meeting, May, based on some of the suggestions that the contractor had, what we have already done, like status of we have, I don't know, for example, in this room, I don't know, 200 light bulbs. How many have already been changed to LED, for example? How many remain? What capacity do we have to do that in-house? Because if that requires a licensed electrician, they only have capacity to do, say, I don't know, 5 a week, whatever that is.
Sure.
But I would like to know what things we have already done as an idea of where we can go.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me, but I'm looking back here for confirmation. Yep.
Okay. So I would like to see that.
I think part of that too was the flow on the water for some of the sinks.
Absolutely. Anything
I
and
did
everything
talk
that we
to
have
a couple
done.
of people in maintenance, and some of that is being done, and they've changed
Right.
out a whole lot of light bulbs, but we haven't gotten numbers on that. I think I was told, if I remember correctly, that they did reduce some temperatures on the hot water heaters. I don't know what kind of impact it would have on reduction, but
Okay.
accumulative, it still could be quite a bit.
Right. And that's why I'm saying I know we haven't been flat-footed. I know we've been doing something. I just don't know what that something looks like.
Okay.
And so I would like to see sort of the scope of what's been done and the scope of what capacity we have.
Okay. So current work to date in electrical, HVAC efficiency, plumbing efficiency, making sure I'm getting everything here.
Yep.
Okay.
Energy efficiency.
Good. Okay. As long as you understand the request.
Because I mean, they left us with here's some suggestions to start with from that first audit.
Okay.
So I'd like to use that as like a framework.
Yeah.
I think I heard April agenda.
April, if that can be done. I mean, if that can be done by April, if not May, but I wouldn't want to push it too much further because for me it's a budget consideration.
So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there anything else that you're looking at budget-wise to further meet that reduction goal?
Yep. So you might be wondering how we're going to get the rest of the way there, right? One that I think is important to understand is that these are very much, sorry, there's just a lot of slides to get through. These are very much blue sky. There is a methodology behind them. I want to stress that. The only one that is true hard number is number 2 because it came from the vendor. The rest are very much using a methodology of a 3-year average or a percentage increase. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Speaking candidly, we're going to over project in this regard with hopes that it will be less. And that is by design. Now, not grossly over project. I want to emphasize that. But we would much rather estimate a 15% increase and it only comes in at say 12.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Clarification on insurance. That's both our P&C and our health insurance, or is it something
PC, health, and work comp.
work comp? Thank you.
Are we still maintaining some kind of classes or whatever to help some, because I know workers' comp is based on the more claims that you have, the more it end up costing
Sure.
us as the consumer of it. Are we still trying to offer some more safety classes and things like that to help remind them to not have workers' comp issues?
Good question. I'm going to defer to HR and or
I
Beth.
wouldn't say that they're classes, but all of our directors, especially in the facilities, I know Dave and Monica and their team do a lot of training. And that continues to happen over the course of the year. They bring in vendors and things like that. So those types of trainings are occurring.
So that's going to sound like a weird question. And it's something you might want to stay here just in case. It's something I notice when it's time for the toes to come out and eat grass as spring arrives. Everybody tends to want to go toward more open-toed shoes or sandals. I didn't find anything within our dress code that specified that we preferred closed-toed shoes. Do we know what any kind of incidences we have because people were in open-toed shoes, be it tripping because of in some kind of flip-flop or sandal, or
We don't
anything that
allow
led to
any
something
type of open toe. So there's a separate guidelines and practices and procedures specific to whether it's child nutrition, if it's custodians, if it's grounds, wherever Dave is. So do you allow open toe?
We do not allow open toe shoes.
Classroom.
We actually buy shoes, we
Uh-huh.
give a voucher.
You have
for
steel toe, right?
Yeah.
150
All of our
with either
facilities.
composite
What about
or-
classroom?
Classroom teachers don't know. You said mowing, right?
Do they wear open-toed shoes? Not
Um,
mowing.
Oh, just classroom teachers. We have no open toe
There's no
guideline.
rule against it.
No,
Right.
not for classroom teachers, no.
Okay, but we aren't aware of anyone having any incidences where
Not to
they.
my knowledge, we haven't
Okay.
had any claims
Okay.
for an open toe shoe or sandal or something like that. Is that what
Well,
you're?
that's good. Nobody
Yeah.
slid a desk across their toe and cut it off, so that's always good to know.
No. No. Yeah.
All right, so then the rest is going to come from the remaining separations that we know are going to happen. And I want to make it very clear, there's going to be separations that occur that get filled, and there's going to be separations that occur that do not get filled. And those are going to be on a case-by-case basis. I think we all share the collective commitment to protect the core courses first. If not, please help me understand where your priorities are, but it's my understanding that's where your priorities are. Right? And I'm probably going to have a lower pupil-teacher ratio at the primary grade levels than I will at, say, the higher elementary grade levels. Does that make sense? I'm speaking in broad terms here, but helping you understand how some of these decisions may be made. Second, and I think it bears repeating, we may frost something now that we unfrost later. And I just want to continue to emphasize that, whether it's the chamber bucks that you all can come back and approve later, or it's a position that we don't fill right now, but we fill 60 days from now as other separations occur.
Do you have kind of an anticipated number of positions you're looking at not refilling?
I would say in order to get to that number right there, you need another 13 to 15.
Okay.
Does that help?
That's a number that I thought we were talking about. I just wanted to state it.
We're using the same calculator. All right, so here's what's coming to the board. Board level decisions. First and foremost, Nettie. You need to make a decision on the future of that building. Right now, my focus is on the programming aspects, but you need to make a decision, and I can understand completely the conversation you want to have related to sale, no sale, demolish, no demolish, whatever else you want to entertain. But please know that we stand ready as soon as you are. But those are very much board level conversations. And this is also my reminder that anytime you sell a building now, it's got the new statute required to that requires additional process that's embedded within that. Okay? So at the direction of board leadership, I'm ready to put that onto an agenda as soon as you all are. Good that? Number 2 is the capital improvement plan. And I'm going to bring that to you in March for your consideration. Just like tonight in the consent agenda, we're going to continue to bring you things that require the expense of money. As we continue to support the needs and move the district forward, you're going to be faced with expenses that are largely going to be, if you will, excessive of $20,000 that are coming from that capital outlay fund. I think it would be to everybody's benefit to review what our current needs are, where our current deficiencies are, as well as creating a common understanding of what we're comfortable with spending. Because remember, we're going to transfer some operational expenses to that fund, as well as look at potentially burning some of that cash balance. So I want to make sure we're on the same page with regard to moving the district forward while also maintaining what I believe is appropriate spending in that regard. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the raises. And that would affect obviously all 3 classifications of employees. Those again are entirely in the board's purview. We will recommend you would make that final decision. Looks like we're probably in the throes of May, if not June. Because again, that's one of our final numbers, and that's one of the few numbers we actually have control over, if that makes sense. Mr. Carney, I've laid it out for you all to play it out. Is there any other questions?
Any other questions? Now's the time.
Thank you.
Well, I do have another question.
Well-
On the, sorry, I was thinking, it's very quick. On the decisions for Nettie, when this gets on the agenda, would we have discussion and then follow up the next month on decision? Because I would like to have some discussion on that. I've got some ideas and I'm sure other board members do as well. Or is it just going to come up as an action?
Yeah, to be clear, you are under no timeline from my perspective. I'm going to tell you the minimum you can do anything is May anyways. Does that make sense? So, but from my perspective, there's no statutory timeline or otherwise that you have to make this decision by. Does that make sense? Just know that the longer it takes, obviously, the more we'll insure it, the more we'll still have some utility expense associated with it.
So will we make that an executive session or to talk about it?
You will not be able to talk about that in an executive.
No, that has to be an open session.
Oh, okay. So we just get it on the agenda then?
Yeah.
I'm happy to add it to the March agenda. April, I mean, you tell me it when you're ready.
March would be great.
I was about to say March is good to me.
Okay. With probably the, I'm going to say expectation that it will come back to more than one agenda. Sound good?
Get it rolling.
All right. I'll be ready for a robust conversation in March. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at item 8, closing of the meeting. Would you like to read the date in case nobody can read them?
I probably won't read the date. Well, I can. Sorry. But I am going to use this opportunity as just a reminder about inclement weather days and procedures because I feel like it's timely and relevant. So with your permission, if I can, it is my intent and purpose to make a decision for this community no later than 5:00 a.m. I just don't believe it's fair to families to receive information at 7 a.m. for that day. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if I can, I'm going to always make the decision the night before, but I'm probably going to cut off decision making by 9 p.m. because I think kids and adults should go to bed and not be waiting for a decision at 2:00 in the morning. So there's going to kind of be a moratorium where there won't be a decision made or rendered in that time frame. 9:00 the night before or by 5:00 a.m. the morning of. The caveat for me is, of course, knowing what we know about our transportation. So that is a huge part of this. But the second part of this decision is largely our labor basin and the number of people that don't live in Leavenworth but are transporting themselves. I'm going to say from all 4 directions in probably a 45-mile radius, if that makes sense. So just wanted to give some context and understanding. We have really 2 decisions. Well, I should say 3. Decision 1 is, of course, to have school as planned. Decision 2 is a full cancellation of services, and that's usually going to always include student activities with the caveat only if the day's conditions improve later. But typically speaking, if it was unsafe to bring kids to school, it's probably also unsafe to take them on a bus to Topeka. Mm-hmm. The third decision that we've added and we've actually executed once this year is a 2-hour delay. And that's kind of got some, I would say, nuance to that situation because it depends largely for me on what does the rest of the day look like. And if I believe the rest of the day will actually have improvement in conditions and or we can safely make it home from school, then I would much rather have 3/4 of a day, not have to worry about another day worth of instruction loss, another day of contact, and certainly making up the hours. But just please understand that that is, I guess, if you will, the last of those 3, but is used strategically when and if conditions are going to be necessarily not as good in the morning, but may improve later in the day. Are there any questions about any of that? I just wanted to clarify for anybody as I realize it's likely going to be some decisions we're faced with later this week.
Did you get any feedback from teachers with the students and how they did with the 2-hour delay?
I would say generally speaking, the feedback was positive. We did have a couple concerns about breakfast, so I'd like to address that. We have put breakfast into a grab and go mode for the 2-hour delay moving forward. Okay. The reason we cannot serve a full service breakfast is not because of a philosophical belief. It's because that time frame is when they're actually doing meal prep for lunch. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so that was where the conflict was with our food service staff. But we are ready to go now with a grab and go breakfast. And then I would say the second concern was just some overall miscommunication on my end regarding when buildings would be open. So for everybody's, I guess, purposes of simplicity, When we do a 2-hour delay, everything moves back exactly 2 hours. So if that bus picks you up at 7:19, it should now pick you up at 9:19. If the doors open at 7:55, they should now open at 9:55. Does that make sense? So I would say that was the two pieces that we looked at specifically to improve.
Thank you. Is there ever an instance when you are certain that you're not going to be calling off school and families are still wondering that we can put out school will be in session?
So here's my hesitancy with that.
Right.
As you all know, the conditions change and they can change quickly. I don't want to communicate, hey, we're going to have school at 9 o'clock tonight. And then by tomorrow morning, I wake up and there's 6 inches of ice and snow on the ground. And I'm like, oh, we better cancel.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that is why I kind of have the, if you will, policy belief that, hey, no news, it means we're having school.
School, yeah.
Thank you for that question. All right, now on to the dates. Just a reminder, no school next Monday in honor of President's Day. We've got a 10 March board meeting here, 6 p.m. And believe it or not, we are already looking at the end of the third quarter. Reminder, as we end the quarter, it'll be on a shorter week as we go to parent-teacher conferences on the 12th and the 13th, respectively, then has no school. And then we enter our spring break the 14th. It's actually the week of, I believe, the 17th through the 21st are the actual 5 days. I would stand for any questions on those. Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Okay. What is next, I wonder?
Unscheduled patron input?
Jake, do we have anybody? No? No patrons, so to speak? I guess that takes us to board comments. Ms. Murphy?
I want to start with something that I neglected last month, and that is to thank all our donors. I went back over our donation gift log, and from December to now, there was $7,900 in goods, services, or cash that was donated to our school district. That's a huge amount of money, and it will go to great causes and fulfilling needs within the district. So we really, truly appreciate every one of you that participated in those. And then I wanted to thank, I got mail the other day, and I wanted to thank the LNEA for their thank you note for board appreciation. I thought that was very thoughtful and kind to take the time and send us, or me, all of us, a thank you note like that. And it is really, truly appreciated. Spring, regardless of what a groundhog says, spring always comes the same time every year. So nothing really changes, but no, spring will be here soon. And if you get a snow day, enjoy and have fun and build a snowman. If not, go to school and learn some more. Thank you.
Ms. Wells?
I was finally able to get out and see a basketball game. That was exciting. The Lansing Leavenworth rivalry is always fun, and the pep band is always my favorite piece of any sporting event. So, no secret, I'm there for the band, but the athletes did great too. I am concerned with the perception that through these budget cuts that we might be looking to encourage teachers to leave the district. I hope that is not the direction that we're going, that we are looking at positions that are no longer being utilized due to class enrollment decline, not because of lack of wanting qualified teachers in classrooms. So I do plan to have further discussions about that. As we all know, we need our teachers, and I personally love and appreciate every one of you that come and show up for our students every day, as well as our staff outside of the classroom. You guys are all important, and I don't want you to go anywhere. So we can make adjustments with who wants to be here and move forward. That's all I got.
Mrs. Reed?
This feels like the shortest board meeting. I don't know if it actually is, but it feels awfully short. I think I just want to take the time to just thank all the staff. Danielle and I didn't talk ahead of time, but the staff, I think, do a very large job for our students every day. I think in some cases it's a very heavy lift that lots of the community would not want to do themselves. I'm not saying that's why people send their kids to school. I'm just saying that we need to make sure that we thank our staff. So if you have an opportunity, even when it's not, teacher appreciation time, just send a little something with your student or make a point to go in and thank them in person. Anything you can do to just add that special touch to those that impact the lives of your child every day. Thank you.
Mrs. Wilson?
I just say the same thing. Thank you to all of our staffs. You guys are amazing. We love you guys, and we're here. So reach out if you need something, and we'll do our best to be that support. And have a good snow day if you get one. I'm trying to get out of here, but I'm gonna go to Miami. Go ahead.
Okay, since I'm always last before you go.
No, you're not last.
Thank you to the NEA for the thank you card, and it was a nice touch that it was sent through the mail. That was a nice surprise. I just wanted to mention two things quickly. Just on the 22nd of February at the high school, that's Saturday, there we are going to have a big Special Olympics basketball tournament and Make the Point fundraiser. And a lot of our students are involved in that, either as athletes or helping with that or working that tournament. So I'd like to encourage anybody who might want to support Special Olympics to come on out and see your friends. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm trying to drive some traffic to the 453 Fireside podcast because it is excellent. I think Dr. Adams and Jake Potter and all the folks that are interviewed, that's really been tremendously helpful to me. I really enjoyed the special ed episode. I sat there and stopped it and took a bunch of notes and stopped it and took a bunch of notes. It's a great way to find out more in depth about how things operate, what's going on in the district, just a little flavor of different parts and pieces and how it all fits together. And that's been tremendously helpful to me. So thank you all for putting that together and producing that. And I'd like to recommend that to anyone else who is looking to find out more about what goes on in the district. And other than that, enjoy your snow day if you get it. And if we don't, we'll just drive on.
Ms. Price?
Sure. I just wanted to say I was really excited to see all of the different elementaries celebrating their 100 days. That was a lot of fun to see different posts on Facebook. I want to encourage everyone to continue supporting our student athletes. It means a lot for them to see folks in the stands to see that their hard work is paid off and that people appreciate what they do. And along that same lines, our student performers would appreciate your support. The next one will be 9 March at All That Jazz, where the Education Foundation is supporting that at the 10 penny. So if you don't have anything else that Sunday afternoon, please come out. Hope to save you a seat. And then to all of our families, thank you for keeping your students in school. I know we have an issue with absenteeism, but the more our kids are in class, the more they learn. So please do your best to get them there. And I know that we're all dealing with Mother Nature, so please be patient, just reinforcing that we'll be doing the things that keep us all safe. And I know that we're entering the season of awesome. All the students that are being notified of scholarships and signings to colleges and Service Academy nominations, I just want to say thank you to all of our students and all of those teachers and admin that support our students to do the best they can. And really just to be the all-around best people they can be. Anyway, so every day is a good day. Go Pioneers.
Thank you. I just want to say something about one of my ad hoc positions, and that's I'm on the board of directors for 120 school districts and I work with comp. And most of the accidents are just people aren't thinking. It's not things like who you would think, but it's just we just gotta make sure that maybe we might want to put some reminders, is, I know we have a few in some of the buildings, but to just think smart is the main thing. Has to be conveyed. When my next comment is, this meeting is adjourned.